Hey guys, welcome back to my studio. My name is Laura and this is Evelyn Art. Today we are continuing this series that still has no name. It's roughly making art like blank, where I am emulating some of my favorite artists who I found on social media. Last week I did the artist Maggie Luck. This week I am doing someone who I did actually have the privilege to know at one time. We actually used to work at a Chick-fil-A in North Carolina back in like 2011, 2012, something like that. I know that he's a good guy, but that's all beside the point. Like, that's not relevant. What is relevant, however, is his signature art style. So much like last time, I'm going to take a look at his social media and the art that he posts and make some notes on his signature style, and then I'm going to take that style and in my own artwork, my own original artwork, I'm going to emulate his signature style. I'm basically sending myself back to art school, which is what this is all about. Pushing myself to grow and trying things I don't normally try. So let's get started. So, Anderson Carman is an illustrator who seems to do mostly comic book style art. He is great at showing his process and he's really skilled at creating atmosphere in his work. His work is mostly story driven, it seems, so mostly everybody he draws is a character from something he's read or seen or something he's written or created. I don't think I've ever seen an actual photo for his profile picture. Instead, he usually does an illustrative self-portrait, and it's also the way he seems to share his life, which I think is really fun and sweet. And I really admire that he's not afraid to share his beliefs through his artwork as well, and as a fellow believer, I think it is awesome. Through the years I've seen his work, this man has done countless challenges. July Canthropy, Smogust, Junicorn, February, DN December, Inktober, and probably a bunch more I've never heard of. When I reached out to him to get the go-ahead for this video, he suggested that I look at his watercolor figures and maybe work off of those, seeing that they might be the most cohesive to study and emulate, and he was indeed correct. Generally, he draws characters, and they all tend to have that crisp comic book look, where they're a little sharp even when they're soft. It's almost like looking at his handwriting. He does a lot of cross-hatching in his ink drawings, but in the watercolor, he seems to keep his tones simple and just layers a little to achieve the values he wants. He seems to draw faces expressively, if not a little impressionistically, only going into detail if it's really close up and relevant to the composition. But otherwise, eyes may be dots or slits, and the rest of the features look like they'll just change figure to figure depending on what feel and expression he wants them to have. So overall, this has been a really interesting dive into his work style, and I am ready and excited to get started. All right, so I just watched an Anderson Carman tutorial from Anderson Carman's Instagram page, and I don't know if that's considered cheating, but the point is to learn, so I'm gonna say no, where he does his watercolor paintings on Bristol, which I have not actually used this since college, and you can see up here where my old dog chewed it. I finally get to use my Bristol pad. I just never really grabbed this because I'm always grabbing some other form of mixed media paper or watercolor paper. I'm going to take this sheet and I'm going to cut it up into smaller sheets because he does his watercolor figures on 4x6 papers, and I actually think that'll be a lot of fun, and it will be a little less pressure with each painting because it'll be smaller. So following his tutorial, I thought I cut out 4x6 Bristol cards, but they were actually 3x5, which is really tiny, and I don't usually draw that tiny. So I tried to draw a conceptual design for the White Witch from the Chronicles of Narnia, and I struggled and I hated it, and so that was great. Then I realized my error and moved on to cutting some 4x6 cards and proceeded to sketch out my characters. I decided to do 3 characters from the Chronicles of Narnia book, The Silver Chair, which Maverick and I just recently finished reading, and I highly recommend it. I did not expect to like it as much as I did, but I digress. I chose to illustrate Puddleglum, who's our favorite character in this book by far, the Lady of the Green Kirtle, or the Green Witch, and the elderly King Caspian X. I don't know why, but I pictured Puddleglum as kind of a lanky but froggy sort of fellow. We know he has sallow skin and webbed hands and feet and is a general downer, but in the most lovable way. I tried my first iteration of Puddleglum with my Pentel brush pen and it was just a mess. I also regretted making his pants black because of the lack of values. I found it difficult to foreshorten his hind leg, and so I tried again, and this time I used my Faber-Castell Pitt pen extra small, and I really like the way that he turned out much, much better. As far as the Lady of the Green Kirtle went, I focused way too much on her dress to begin with. I was trying to make it this like big, luxurious ball gown type thing, when the story actually describes it as a rather thin and long dress. She is supposed to be enchantingly beautiful, but in my first rendition, you can hardly see her face. So I also gave her a second go, and I like it a lot better, although I'm not like completely sold. I'm very tempted to do it a third time, but I think I'm gonna stop here for now. I thought my King Caspian drawing would be boring, and maybe it is to you, but somehow I found it to be one of my favorite to illustrate. I felt like I was getting much closer to Anderson's style in this one. It was simple, but the character is very clear. And the final thing that I plan to do is I want to emulate Anderson Carman's self-portraits. So a little more angular, a little more, you know, stylized and maybe dramatized elements of my face and everything. That's my goal, is that I'm going to make a self-portrait that is in his style. I think this is going to be fun. All in all, I'd say this project was really successful in adding to my visual vocabulary by looking harder and paying closer attention to things I don't usually focus on. Art is really like language in that the larger your vocabulary, the more specifically and intentionally expressive that you can be. So I think that was a really cool result of going through this process. So I think I'm done. This was a lot more challenging than I anticipated, but still fun. I honestly think I could have pushed myself harder. To be frank with you guys, I just haven't been feeling well lately. All that aside, I still learned a lot. Thank you so much, Anderson, for letting me take a little dive into your work style and emulate your work. It's been really fun. I feel like I said that plenty of times and everybody has gotten the point. So if you guys haven't checked out Anderson's work, you can on his Instagram page at Anderson Carman or on his website at andersoncarman.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed it and I will see you next time.